In this English 2010 video, we want to talk about arguments and counterarguments. So as we've discussed previously, an argument is the main idea or the thesis statement of your paper. It's what you want your readers to know, understand, or do by the time they've finished reading your paper. He also mentioned that an argument needs to be supported by the claims or the reasons why that argument is strong or important or valuable. And we use things like definitions, explanations, examples, and evidence to support those claims and reasons, to explain them and to connect them to the argument. This is where our sources become really important because sources can help offer things like definitions, explanations, examples, and evidence. Another way to think about an argument is to think about a structure. And the argument is maybe the roof of the structure. In order to support this roof, we need our main claims or our main reasons. These are often the main ideas that we've come across in our outline that support our thesis statement. Now, these claims are then in turn supported or kind of buttressed by our evidence and reasoning. We have to explain how the claims support the argument and what they mean. In other words, we can't just take a quote from an article and put it in our paper and expect that the reader is going to understand how that quote connects to our argument. We need to explain the quote. We need to maybe summarize it. We need to show how it's relevant to our main idea and offer some explanations. And these are things that you already have practiced with your annotated bibliography. You already practiced explaining the relevance of the different articles that you were reading. So this will help you as you write your argument. Now, a weak argument is an argument that has claims that either have very unreliable sources or weak explanations and evidence, or sometimes have no evidence at all. And so this can happen when we make a claim, but we don't have any sources to support that claim. It might just be our own ideas. And although that can be helpful if we provide lots of other evidence for it, academic arguments in an academic essay are stronger when we have good, reliable sources to support those ideas. So we can think of this then as our argument being our thesis statement, and then our claims being the main ideas of each of our topic sentences. And if we have 5 topic sentences, then each one might represent a different claim that is helping to support that thesis statement. If you're writing a paragraph and you can't clearly explain how that paragraph relates to your thesis statement, it's possible that paragraph doesn't really need to be part of your paper. Or it's possible that that paragraph needs to be rewritten so the connection to your thesis statement is much clearer. But then we can see that within each of these paragraphs with a topic sentence, we need to give evidence, analysis, and reasonings that help explain that for the reader, so that by the time the reader is finished reading our topic sentence, they clearly understand what the reason or the claim is and how it relates back to the thesis statement, that you've convinced them that that's a good idea and that it makes sense. Now, in talking about the argument, we also need to talk about the counterargument. A counterargument comes from the word counter, which means against. So a counterargument are all of the reasons or claims why your thesis statement might not be true. Or in other words, what are some concerns or problems or misconceptions, that means misunderstandings, that people might have about your argument? So even though there's lots of reasons to agree with your thesis statement, are there any reasons why people might not want to agree with your thesis statement or might have problems with that idea? That's what your job is to do in a paper, is to not just ignore those things, but to address them in your paper and help your reader understand how the counter-argument maybe is not as important as your argument. So when we respond to a counter-argument, the first thing we need to do is acknowledge that it's there. We need to recognize that there are certain things that people may be concerned about and may prevent them from believing our thesis statement. Now, sometimes it's because there are some misunderstandings about our topic. And so we need to clarify that misunderstanding. For example, maybe you're writing a paper about multilingualism and the benefits that multilingualism brings to young people. That knowing more than one language has many different cognitive and social benefits. Well, one of the misunderstandings or misconceptions people have is that if someone is bilingual, a child is bilingual, they will not speak either language very well and they will be confused, and that their brain won't develop properly. And that is a medical misunderstanding. And so that you could then say, here is a common misunderstanding about bilingualism. And then you could show how that misunderstanding has been shown to no longer be true because of scientific evidence. Now, another possibility is that you're showing that there is a real problem, and that even though there's lots of good things about your thesis statement, there are some problems with it. And this is where then you might acknowledge one of those problems and then suggest a solution that could solve or reduce the problems associated with your argument. And lastly, there may be some aspects of your solution that really cannot be easily solved. But what you can do is show that there's lots of advantages to your argument and that the disadvantages or the cons against your argument are quite small in comparison to all the advantages. So even though maybe we can't fix some of these problems yet, or there will bring some disadvantages, overall the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. So as you work on drafting your paper, what you want to be thinking about is, do you have a clear argument? Are you making a clear thesis statement where you're trying to help your readers understand or think or do something differently? And then you support that argument with topic sentences, which are your claims, and that each of your body paragraphs has good evidence and reasoning to help us understand those claims and how they connect to the argument or the thesis statement. As you do all of that, don't be afraid of the counter argument. Acknowledge the counter argument when it relates to your topic and find ways to address it, either by clarifying the misconceptions, by suggesting solutions to reduce the problems, or helping your readers understand that the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. All of these steps should help you build a much stronger argument for an argumentative paper.